first, can you just tell me a little bit about what you do and your title?
My name is Matt Child. I'm the CEO of Utah Independent Agents. We're the insurance trade association here in the state of Utah. We advocate on behalf of independent insurance agencies to help them grow and maintain their businesses and make sure we have a healthy industry here in the state. We do that in collaboration with the Department of Insurance and legislators and carriers alike.
Great, thank you so much. Okay. And let's see. Go down a little bit. Okay, first, can you tell me about the new map and if that's going to change at all how insurance companies assess risk?
Well, the map is generated in conjunction with the Forestry Department here in the state of Utah to help designate the highest risk wildfire areas along the whole state, not just the Wasatch Front. Insurance carriers are going to incorporate that map to help identify those areas more acutely, but insurance carriers are still able to go ahead and use their own data and their own maps for rate.
So do you think then, now that we have maybe two different sources of assessing, both the insurance company and the state map, is that going to be more homes that we see that are kind of assessed as a high risk, or not necessarily?
I don't think so. I think the insurance carriers have done a pretty good job identifying where the high risk areas are, and the state map and their information doesn't really conflict with one another very often. I think where you may see areas where insurance carriers have tried to identify fire risks that may lay outside that map, and that's where the state and the insurance carriers may conflict with one another. But the map itself that the state has, I don't think it's going to be a big problem.
If homes decide to use more fire-resistant materials in home building, will that affect their insurance rates at all?
For an individual home, not likely. It will certainly help protect their home against wildfire should it come. I think, as we discussed earlier, I think it's more likely that you'll see building requirements and codes change. So as new homes go in that area and homes get rebuilt or remodeled in those areas, they'll have to be brought up to code. Eventually, long term, if the entire area has fewer fires, that will help their rate. But on an individual home basis, no. But it's the same thing. We do what we can to protect our homes in certain areas. Wildfire is a risk, and every homeowner should do what they can to protect their home against wildfire.
So if in more wildfires, less homes are being burnt, would that change it at all, or no? Is it not about damage, just about frequency?
It's about all of that, damage and frequency. And so, yeah, if the fire codes are such that homes are more resistant to fire and properties are more resistant to fire, then yeah, it would definitely benefit the rate in a long-term basis, because insurance rate is derived by a number of things, but over a long period of time. It's a statistical reality. And so how they look at those statistics and what the performance of the area is relative to fire or any type of loss could make the rates go up or down.
Okay. And then you just break down policies as well in your work. Why do you think the state is doing this? Can you explain the concept you shared with me earlier of like taking care of your yard for your neighbor?
Oh, I think the state generally is trying to be proactive to help both insurance companies and residents to make sure that they can maintain insurability. We've done a very good job of that here in the state. The Department of Insurance has done great. Legislature's done great to not be overreactive. But at the same time, with this map, the state is going to go in and inspect all these properties, and they can compel people through the fine system to harden their home against property, whether that be changing their fence, clearing brush, etc. So you may do a great job of that in your property, but your next door neighbor doesn't do a very good job of that. Your fire risk goes up because your neighbor's not taking care of their property. Well, the state can now go in, inspect everyone, and say, hey, everyone needs to maintain their property and these risks, not only just to help protect the property, but also help reduce the cost of firefighting. It's very expensive here in the state to do that, and if homes and homeowners and property owners are more proactive about clearing brush, hardening their homes against property, it helps everyone, not just the insurance industry, but the firefighters to be safer, everyone in the state.
As wildfires become, it seems like, increasingly common here, do people have any risk of losing their insurance altogether?
Sure. It's happened in other states where certain areas, no one will insure them. at any price because the risk is too high. State of Utah, we're not quite there yet. We're doing our best to avoid that. And so, yeah, it's definitely a risk, for sure.
Let's see. What do you think, like, is the threshold for other states, like, when that becomes necessarily, like, when people could expect that potentially happening here?
I'm not going to put any timeline on when it's going to happen in the state of Utah. I think insurers love the state of Utah. And so I don't think that there's any insurer that's looking at the state saying, hey, we're just not going to write in the state. That can change, certainly, for sure. But I don't foresee that happening right away. It depends on the individual carrier and what their balance sheet looks like and what their exposure tolerance is.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I didn't mean timeline as much as, like, factors that make that necessary, that, like, it gets to be too much for insurance companies.
Sure. I mean, the factors really, insurance companies are for-profit businesses. We're heavily regulated. Their profit margins are regulated. So, you know, where a furniture shop may make 100% markup, the insurance company's dealing with, 3 to 5, maybe 7% margins. So they're not making a ton of money per policy. So they have to be very accurate in their pricing and their risk assessment. So if a particular area is entirely too risky, or a particular risk isn't something that's outside their comfort zone, they just won't write it. So a carrier may decide, hey, I don't want to write a $40 million home up in, Deer Valley, because they're not comfortable taking on that much risk in one location. That's certainly within their prerogative to do. Or they may not like a particular area because of a flood exposure or a wildfire exposure or whatever. And they may do that to help protect their ability to insure other properties across the state. So the insurance companies are looking at their overall ability to help extend insurance to the state of Utah, not necessarily one particular area or zip code.
Okay, that makes sense. And then, let's see, what else can be done to protect the homes in our areas? You told me about, like, building codes potentially going in. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, to protect homes in your area or even your own home. So building codes are going to help, obviously, but if you have an existing home, we're not going to go in and change our exterior wall materials or roof materials per se. But certainly as homes get built in these areas that are higher risk, the building codes will force a more fire-resistant type of structure. But as a homeowner that's there, what can you do? Clear away brush from your home. Make sure that the trees don't overhang your house. Clear off leaves and pine needles from your roof and out of your gutters and away from your house and away from your yard. Generally pick up. Make sure you have defensible space. If you have big encroaching weeds and plants and everything else around your house, make sure they're trimmed. Make sure they're well maintained. Make sure your lawn and your yard is well maintained. All of that helps reduce the amount of fuel a fire can take when coming into your home.
Are those things you've just learned through, like, time in the industry and seeing so many homes get?
Well, there are things that we learn, but there are also things that, as an insurance carrier, they'll coach their clients. So they'll go and inspect a property, and they may like a property, but they may say, hey, your tree is overhanging too much. Can you trim that back? Your pine tree is right on the ground. Can you trim that up a little bit so if there is a brush fire, it doesn't immediately hit your pine tree and have that go up? Or, you've got some trees in the back part of your property that are, diseased and really good fire fuel. You need to get those taken down. So the insurance companies are taking a real proactive approach with the consumer to help them harden their home against fire or other losses. They'll inspect roofs and say, hey, your roof, yeah, it's a 30-year roof, but Utah has really rough winters and hot summers, and they're very, very difficult on roofs. You might have some cupping, some other issues on your tiles or your shingles, and the insurance company say, hey, you need to replace your roof or repair your roof. That will help future losses that are going to be way more than the cost of repair. Be proactive in maintaining your property, maintaining your home, and you'll be able to avoid a lot of losses that others that aren't proactive experience.
From your experience in the industry, like, what changes have you seen throughout your career? Specifically with wildfire.
I think specifically with wildfire, the changes throughout my career is severity and frequency, meaning that the fires seem to be bigger and they seem to be more often. And maybe that's a function of the fact that more of us are living in wildfire areas. More and more homes are going out into more rural areas, and those rural areas have a harder time to respond to wildfire that comes across vast open space or in forests that are overgrown and those nature. So what I've seen from an industry response perspective is the willingness to go and inspect properties as an insurance carrier, to go and inspect a property. That's a lot of upfront cost. And then to give that client real feedback that they can go and change their property, they can go maintain their property, they can clear brush, they can do things to be proactive. So I've seen that a lot in the industry over the last 30 plus years that I've been in it.
The bill explains there's like, if an insurance carrier increases by 20% for a at-risk home, they have to provide some more transparency for that. Can you explain that to me? Is that a big change, or is that pretty typical of what we're already seeing?
Well, I think my understanding what the bill says, if the rate increase is specifically related to wildfire, right? If that's the reason for the rate increase, then the insurer needs to explain to the consumer what that raise is for. So if that's the case, why wildfire? Why am I going up? The client might ask, well, you're in a particular area that has this high risk zone, and that's wildfire versus just a rate increase. That then allows the insurer and the insured to come back, the client to come back and say, okay, but it's not wildfire, why else would it be a rate increase? Overall, rate increases in the state of Utah are slowing down, but they're still occurring. Every loss is still more expensive than they were 5 or 10 years ago, just due to inflation. Materials cost, employee cost, everything else has gone up. To fix your home, your insurance goes up as a result of that. And that's really what's happened.
So just to confirm, you said this earlier, but I want to make sure I quote you correctly.
Sure.
You believe that like with this map going out, you don't expect people to get a lot of alerts of any change of insurance. You don't think there will be too many changes?
Well, the bill, and all credit to Representative Snyder and other legislators, they worked with the insurance industry to make sure it wasn't incredibly disruptive. We want to maintain insurability and access to markets for every consumer here in the state. And so one of the things that we were able to do with the bill was protect insurers to still be able to use their data. Insurers use 60, 70 years of data sometimes to determine a risk and a rate for a risk. And so they want to allow those insurers to use that data in coming up with a rate, including their maps and everything else. This map provided by the state designs or designates where the specific maximum or highest risk wildfire area is. It doesn't mean that there isn't other wildfire exposure in the state that lies outside that map. It definitely could. This is the highest risk area. So I don't expect that the map being and the law going into effect January 1 is going to result in immediate rate increases, because at the same time, we still have to have a file issued by the carrier to the state. The state has to look at that file, make sure that that rate, whatever it is justified, loss justification or risk justification, and then the state will approve it. So I don't think you're going to see a lot that's an immediate reaction to this. I think this is enabling the state to be proactive, go and inspect the properties, help people get more fire wise, and help insurers point to that transparent data that is the map provided by the state.
Is there anything else I haven't asked you about this topic overall you want to touch on about the bill or about just changing wildfire in general?
I think the big thing there that I would say, if as a consumer you're concerned and you're not sure, reach out to your independent insurance agent. They have a lot of carriers that they can sit down and talk to you about. You're protecting your largest asset. You really should consult with someone for more than 10 minutes to make sure it's properly insured, not just the lowest. Because low insurance, if it's not properly insured, doesn't help you when you have a loss. You want to make sure you have the right amount of coverage for all your contents inside, everything else. And then be proactive. Work within your communities. Can your communities do stuff to help harden the community against fire? Communicate with your fire departments and make sure that that you're complying with what they need you to do to help your communities be there as well. So I think the big thing is reach out to your insurance agent, consult with them, make sure you have the right coverage, and be proactive.